think we got to start adding people in, huh?
Yep. Here they come, green.
John, your background noise is bananas.
Yeah, done.
You want to hear
Madeline.
something
Hi.
funny, Sanjay?
What's that? Yeah, tell me.
Yeah, I got a message from Laureen today,
Uh-huh.
and we have a mutual friend, and she asked me about the town I grew up in.
Uh-huh.
It was a little town called Creede, Illinois.
Uh-huh.
And
Hi, Gregory.
Laureen, where did you grow up?
Creede, Illinois.
Oh, wow.
Whoa, that's weird.
Yeah,
Small world.
Yeah,
Yeah, small world.
that's awesome. So how was your week, everyone? Tough? Yeah.
Like a Fellini movie.
Yeah. So, you know, what I was thinking about is that when we were defined as a hotspot here in Luzerne County, this was weeks ago, I kind of felt that a little bit of the numbers become a little bit oppressive when you're in that scenario. You think twice about going out, you think twice about doing anything, moving about or doing anything, because you know that there's a bit of a higher risk to that because of these numbers, right? So, hey, Leslie. And so we start to come down. Pennsylvania as a whole starts to come down, Luzerne County. And there was a lot of agita, you know, and we saw it with the protests and people showing up in Harrisburg and protesting and saying, you know, you're killing small business and all this other stuff going on. We've gotten through all of that and we've come out the other side. Pennsylvania has relatively on the, you know, positive trajectory. I would say among all the states, maybe we're doing quite well. We're at least in the top 10 of states that are doing well with handling the pandemic. What is and because of that sense of relief, I feel like, okay, I'm more confident about letting the kids go to camp, more confident about letting the kids go back to school. Last week we talked about, and Terry and I have been talking about kids going to school. What is that like? Are any of you in an area where, I know Terry is, right? Terry's definitely in a state with growing numbers and extremely kind of difficult circumstances, Texas and Florida, et cetera. Who else is out there with that feeling? Madeline?
I am. Cincinnati, Ohio.
Really, Ohio? I didn't know that.
Yes, Ohio.
So what is your dailies like?
Well, we're certainly not way up there, but we're certainly a lot higher than we were in the beginning. Our governor, DeWine, had a wonderful health director, Amy Acton, to whom he listened to until he decided to open up the society, and at first mandated face mask, talked to Trump that day, and the next day he rescinded that. And she quit 2 days later. So I'm pretty sure that had to do the reason why. And since then, and we had really low numbers. We really did. We had great numbers. Things have just kept increasing. I guess in my area, it must be about 1,600. We're a green, no, we're at level 3, whatever that is.
Yeah, that's the other problem, Madeline. State to state, it's different.
Yeah.
You know,
which is not good.
No, I don't want to know what green is in Texas, for example, or Florida.
Yeah.
You know, you know.
You don't. Nope.
They would
want to
probably
know.
not qualify for a good color up here in the Northeast.
Yeah.
So
we're a rusty blood color in Texas right now.
Yeah.
So,
But don't you think, guys, like my observations of what's happening around me have been very heartening. I go down to the convenience store where a lot of people here get their gas and diesel and coffee in the morning, and everyone is masked. Go to my hardware store, everyone is masked, and the proprietor is enforcing it at the door with no objections. She sent a woman out to go get her mask. And,
well,
I don't know, John. John, I don't know.
talk amongst yourselves. I'll give you the top.
So, okay. Thank you, Lebanon County Young Republicans, for continuing a great revolt. Oh, okay.
No.
Dinner meeting at Moose LZ. No social distancing. Is this where? Jonestown? That's out west. Okay.
What was my comment, John? I said they were psychopaths.
That's Lebanon County. That's where the Renaissance Fair is. That's where southeast.
It's Darwinism at its best. Darwinism.
Yeah, southwest of like Lancaster.
Yeah, but okay, but this is a very, very tiny minority. Wouldn't you say that, John?
6.
Well, I think that the challenge is that the different groups have made this such a political issue that it's now a revolt against Governor Wood and not something to prevent pandemic epidemic outbreak. It's a political stance. If Governor Corbett is still the governor, the governor Lee,
But there's
would be
two.
the opposite.
I think there's two types there's two types of people who aren't wearing masks right now. The one type are the ones that are doing it as a political thing. It's a objection, right? And then there are those that live in an environment and a state where, like Madeline just mentioned, there's no leadership telling them to do it. Okay, so they're not wearing a mask because they feel it's tyranny. They're not wearing a mask because they're not told to. And a lot of people are not being, like Florida, a bunch of interviews about, nobody I know has gotten sick. I don't need to wear a mask, and I don't watch the news. If every door had "you're not coming in unless you wear a mask," that guy's attitude will change. He's not wearing a mask because he's a Trump, flag bearing Republican. He's just dumb.
There's a third group, Sanjay.
Is there?
Yeah, it's called the anti-vaxxers.
Yes. Hell yes.
Yeah.
Really?
Yes. They have completely transitioned since, vaccines aren't a big deal now, to anti-mask. 100%.
I thought
Did
those
you
were
see
all
the-
Trumpers.
No, there is
No?
three. There's the unaffected, there's the political, and then there's the anti-maxers. And those are the three groups that are
wow.
pushing the online anti-mask prevalence.
Gregory, it's nice to see you. You usually have some great questions. Anything that came to mind this week for you?
I saw something about a cocktail that's going into a third test phase, and I was wondering if you heard anything about it.
Do you know what's in it?
I'd have to look at my resource. I read something online today. I think I popped you an email about it.
Sorry, I haven't been able to check, but I will. I'll get back to you. But so I think the most interesting treatment, development that's leading to reduced mortality is methylprednisolone, and dexamethasone. So low dose continuous continuously titrated steroid usage in a hospital environment. It's I think that we all have now realized that the killer is the body itself and not the virus. Once the body gets into cytokine storm and out of control immune response, it starts to kill itself. Acute kidney injury and all this other stuff, microcoagulopathy, these are all a result of the body not knowing what to do, so it does everything. It sends out all the troops all at once, and they just go berserk. And that's the suppression of that is saving lives.
Here's the article.
Okay.
Good.
Says coronavirus fighting antibody cocktail being tested in thousands of people. It's in late stage trials. Let's see if it says it. It was in the report published in June in the Journal of Clinical Virology.
Okay.
Was that the one where it was 78,000 in the study?
These say 2,000 participants at 100 sites will receive either the drug or a placebo. I'm trying to find that number.
But it is a treatment, it's not a vaccine.
No, it's a treatment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it just was people that happened to be on that cocktail, and they studied them, how those of them that had COVID and survived or didn't. They did a study of, and I can't remember, where was it? Was it Dutch or German or something? It wasn't here.
This company is called Regeneron.
Oh, Regeneron. Yeah.
It was originally published in Live Science.
So this is a monoclonal antibody cocktail?
No, it's a antiretroviral. It's the reverse transcriptase and TRIs or whatever. I remember it from school.
Yeah. But, oh, that's interesting. Okay.
There's 3 of them, but I know it's the one that Gregory mentioned because I saw it yesterday too, and of course I can't find it either.
Do you have the author's name?
There, it doesn't, wait, here's a doctor, hold on. I just saw, it may be a Regeneron. The president and chief scientific officer of Regeneron, George Yancopoulos, Yancopoulos, but it does not look like he is the author. It just looks like he.
I'll just look it up under Regeneron.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I just, like I wanted to say before, remdesivir is so here's my peppermint oil. Okay, so how does the American pharmaceutical industry work? I'll give you an example. Let's now pretend that I'm now a for now, I'm from this moment until the end of this example, I'm a representative of a company. And I have discovered that peppermint oil, okay, applied, no, I'll just say intravenously. Peppermint oil intravenously given. No, wait.
Sounds about right here.
Yeah, right? No. So peppermint oil has a antiviral activity, all right? And we discovered this by studying 2,800 people who chew peppermint gum every day, all right?
Right now, I'm doing it right now.
So what we have done is we have invested in a peppermint farm in Bolivia, all right? And our peppermint plants grow at an altitude of 9,828 feet. And it's only those plants that are known to produce the appropriate medicinal levels of peppermint oil in the biochemical form that is most effective. So I announced this, and the next day, the United States as a whole buys the mountain in Bolivia where those peppermint plants are grown, okay? And then laws are drafted to not allow any other company to grow peppermint plants on that mountain, all right? This is the kind of stuff that if you go into the background of remdesivir and start reading on not conspiracy theory, like just general articles on what's going on with the stock of Gilead and who has purchased the initial 1.8 million doses of remdesivir, and the fact that the Europeans cannot get any right now. They can't buy any. Neither can anyone else in the world. Only Americans can buy remdesivir. And because those countries would demand a price point that the Americans are willing to pay that they're not willing to pay, okay? Because they have socialized systems, and they'll say, well, we would want to buy 800,000 doses, and we're not going to pay $3,100 per dose. We're going to pay you $1,200, take it or leave it. And Gilead would then have to sell it to them, or because it's in such high demand, they'll just sell it all at $3,100 to every one in the United States that wants to buy it. This is peppermint oil. I'm sorry to say that remdesivir is peppermint oil. All right. The studies that confirmed its effectiveness are hair thin in their evidence. They are Class C evidence. And there's not enough RCT. There's not enough peer review, I should say, on this RCT that would we haven't reproduced the initial results. Okay, so all of this is peppermint oil, and it's very expensive peppermint flavored gum. Very expensive.
Sanjay,
Yeah.
the big draw that they sold remdesivir on, that it would lower the overall time that you were sick. And so for the $3,000 that you're going to pay for remdesivir, you're going to get about 3 days less of intubator time.
Yeah, maybe. But you need to prove that to me, because I don't believe it yet.
Oh, I know, but that's how they sold it.
Yeah, that's how
it was going to shorten the amount of time that you were sick with it. So everyone went, oh, the new hydroxychloroquine.
Yeah.
And
not only that, it's like also saying that spearmint gum is not allowed. Okay. So ritonavir and all of the other monoclonal antibodies that showed effectiveness in Asia in trials in Japan and South Korea, tocilizumab, nifamostat, all of these drugs that showed efficacy, they're not allowed here in the United States because there's apparently not enough evidence to allow them to be used in the United States.
Well, if they would only hire...
This is crazy. It's inhumane.
It's so corrupt.
No ethics. Unethical.
This is where Montedoshi lobbying comes in.
Yes.
It's a wholly owned subsidiary of Montedoshi Industries.
I love it.
And we could get it all worked out.
So we have at least 7 different candidate molecules that, and I keep saying this every week. Has anyone heard of leronlimab in the news?
No.
I looked it up and there was nothing.
Yeah.
They're busy buying up the stock. And then when they get their hands on the stock, they'll go, hey, we got the new remdesivir.
There's now...
Oh, so they scrubbed the internet while they're doing their dirty, corrupt part.
It's not just 1 or 2 papers. It's now a growing chorus from the scientific community that there's a chemicals pathway called RANTES that CCR5 is involved. CCR5 is involved in all antiviral response by the body. Okay, the body tries to fight HIV, but the body's response to HIV is shut down by the fact that HIV kills T cells. It kills all CD4 T cells. Okay, so when they say a patient's CD4 count has dropped to a certain level, that means they've become completely immune deficient. That means their T cells are no longer effective. That means all opportunistic infections can start to take over. That's what kills HIV patients. So there's a pathway that we've identified that HIV disrupts or destroys, and they developed a drug to protect that pathway, and it's called leronlimab. Okay, it's part of a natural antiviral response by the body. And in the 35 different trials of leronlimab, I don't know the total number of patients, but it's somewhere in the range of 7,800 for the anywhere between 7,800 and 12,000. Okay, these are significant amounts of patients. It is highly, highly effective in its antiviral properties. And then they tried it in COVID patients in 2 centers, in San Diego and in I can't remember if it's Montefiore or Maimonides. I think it's Montefiore, Albert Einstein Medical Center in New York. And regardless of the stage the patients were at, all 35 patients recovered. So there were late stage patients, there were early stage patients, they were all given the same dose, various age groups, etc. And it was the first trial of it. And so, again, I'm not a true believer yet, but why is it not? Why is Jair Bolsonaro taking that and other these remdesivir is peppermint oil, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, and these other drugs are getting no coverage.
I just found one from May 8th in a search. But that's, 4 days ago. Cytodine pipeline COVID-19.
Yeah, there you go, Cytodine. They're the only company that's picked it up. Watch that one. Watch it. Because because remdesivir is going to be overtaken by an antiviral candidate. Right now, we know that to prevent, to early enough, there's the biophysics stuff, right? If you have a patient with fulminant pneumonia, prone them early, keep them off a ventilator. There's guys in Texas at Baylor that are saying ventilator use is going to be completely avoided, and they're going to favor ECMO, which is extracorporeal membrane oxygenation. Basically, replace it's an external lung, so to speak. And instead of ventilating, they're doing ECMO on the most severe patients.
How is that different from barometric?
Oh, barometric's totally external. So there's no invasive. ECMO is taking a tube, plugging it in a huge tube this size, like a garden hose, and all of the blood that exits the heart is then sent through a membrane oxygenation device. And then
is that like a heart-lung machine?
It's kind of
Yeah,
like
what it is.
And then the bariatric is they put you in a cylinder, and
I've seen the home ones.
And it's just very high pressure oxygenation.
Yeah, I'm sure every celebrity has a home hyperoxygenation chamber.
I use Terry's when I'm in Texas. I just love
You're all welcome to stop by.
It's very low risk for COVID because it explodes the.
Yeah, well, we get you up to 300 atmospheres, and you don't have to worry about COVID no more.
Yeah,
you don't have to worry about anything.
Anything.
Yeah.
I think what the point I'm trying to make is all the assumptions that we had initially about we're going to run out of ventilators and we're going to need this and we're going to need that and this drug's effective and that drug's effective. They've all been thrown out the window. And what we've come back down to is some very basic critical care medicine. Suppress the immune system as long as there's not a co-infection. Keep co-infections from occurring. Keep oxygenation going and try to avoid ventilation, because ventilation can damage an already damaged lung architecture. And then also keep them from clotting. Okay, keep an eye on clotting. That poor guy, that Broadway actor, lost.
Oh, Cordero.
Yeah, he lost his legs and then lost his life. And he was in the hospital for 101 days.
God.
What a gorgeous, bright, beautiful soul. This guy taken, beautiful family, and he brought like all this joy and art to people, and suffered that much to just to die. It was horrible. So, and for all of us that care, we have to keep putting faces to these deaths. Okay, it's important. Just like George Floyd, and there's hundreds of young black men that are never recorded. They didn't die. They were just tortured in the same way and walked away. Like that, COVID is torturing hundreds of thousands of people. They're not killing them, and they're walking away with horrible morbidities that they're going to carry for years.
It's the number no one talks about.
Exactly, that is the number no one talks about.
Nobody talks about it, and it's one of the most important numbers. And if we did talk about it, people would take this a little more seriously.
Because that's going to be the accumulating cost.
Yeah.
The dead don't cost anything, but the accumulating cost is the damage it does to people who would normally be productive and normally have, very low burden on our healthcare. That would produce a very low burden on our healthcare system, that will now produce a very, very high burden on our healthcare system. It's like another war where those guys are coming home with, all kinds of injuries, physical and mental, and we all pay for that.
And that's the irony, we can save people now, and then we don't take care of them after. And I'm a retired nurse due to disability. And I have all the time in the world to look at it now. And I have my own $2 million hospital bill I can't wait to deal with, but my lawsuit is a long way away. And I'll only get $500,000 from the lawsuit, blah, blah. It'll work out fine. I am a lucky one. I'm definitely a lucky one. Don't have that left leg or femur anymore. Hey, but it's all, not working. And my new job is to go online and just educate myself and just be annoying to people that need to, not annoying, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Persistent, like what you're saying.
I do give a class in being annoying to people online. So
it's caring concerned. I'm caring, concerned.
Yes.
We're never going to get out of here unless we have a change in the Oval. That is going to be the only way we're going to get out of this situation.
I mean, I'm just enjoying this while I can.
It's got to be, because this is at the level of this is a national threat at the level of anything else we've seen. This is I didn't believe that there was a real war on terror. I didn't believe that Al-Qaeda was a massive threat to the West or anything like that. Our response was entirely disproportionate, and we ended up spending $6 trillion in blood and treasure on avenging the death of 3,600 Americans. Now 130,000 Americans are dead. What are we doing? Nothing on that level. Nothing even close.
Going forwards, this is great. Going forwards, the line coming out of the White House is going to be, well, it's here. Let's just live with it.
Yeah.
That's what they're saying.
That's what they're saying.
Yeah, that's the other major, and that goes back to what Terry keeps bringing up, that you're ignoring the true numbers and cost, and those are the people who are recovering with all of these ailments that they're going to be taking with them into the future and requiring care. So that means that number continues to grow the more we just live and let live with it. That number becomes a massive, untold, undiscovered burden and tax on all of us as we move forward. And the other thing that I tried to tie together in today's town hall, I don't think I was very successful with it, is that mutation D614, the G, is the first of any number of mutations that could totally change the face of this disease and make it. What if 2 months from now a mutation occurs in a protein that I showed you today, one of them, that makes it, I'm just, again, okay, just conjecture, that makes its mortality rise by 2x or 5x.
But after 4 weeks of illness,
absolutely, it's absolutely possible. Absolutely possible.
I so wish that literal vultures were circling so people had a visual cue to get it together.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh,
I
they
mean,
are.
they
Right.
are circling, we just can't see them.
They are absolutely. You know, the longer you let it go, the more opportunities. I used to start these with Terry knows I used to have this. There's a strain map. Okay. Sorry, guys. So there's a map that shows the 8 strains that evolved out of Wuhan. There are still 8 major strains, and then there's lots of substrains, and now we're seeing mutations. The maximum number of mutations are all here in the United States, which
Wow.
means the maximum number of opportunities for this to turn into something horrible are right here. It doesn't have to come from anywhere else. The longer you let this just go in these numbers,
Faster.
the higher the chance for something horrible to happen.
What I see is that without a national response, nothing's going to happen. I live in a resort community high in the Rocky Mountains.
Yeah.
And we were one of the early epicenters, and everything shut down. And our community really came together, and we lowered everything. Now we're in a period where we have a lot of tourists coming in for the summer. A lot of them are from Texas and Arizona. And whereas all of the locals wear masks and stay their distance, but all of the tourists coming in are horrified by this behavior and are very political and very strong about not respecting what the locals are doing in terms of protecting themselves in the community. And we kind of need the tourists to survive at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So without a national response, we won't have, this won't be solved in our area.
Yeah. I think that the federal government, I mean, come on. Even if it were not a truly federal response, if at least guidelines were sent to all of the states that you must do it this way, I can't really localize, things that much when it comes to a pandemic response.
Our state,
there's a right way and there's a wrong way to respond to a pandemic. I mean, you can't allow, there's no federalism when it comes to pandemic response.
It's 50 states.
Not only
50
that,
different
Terry,
things.
Colorado and Pennsylvania need to respond the exact same way to get the exact same result. There's no Texas response and Florida response and Georgia response. There's one right way to do it.
And our state has responded extremely well. However, we have lots of people on states that border us who are exploding now. And, until the states close their borders, there's no way we can protect ourselves.
Yeah. One of the things that Karen Colber mentioned, that the county where Lake Tahoe is located had their bars open, and the county next door had their bars closed. So everybody came out of that county to the place where the bars were open. So you're literally ruining the success of the people next door by, it's awful.
That's happening all over the country with the partial closures. Like Los Angeles, they tried piecemeal closing things again.
I know it's been said, but they said it's like having a peeing section in a swimming pool, and it's so true.
Yeah. As a nation, that's absolutely what it feels like. Yeah. The other thing is, I don't know how many of you guys have friends who live internationally. There is such shock and horror.
Yes.
At us, yeah.
At us.
Mm-hmm.
I had an India Times article sent to me that says, the translation from Hindi is, what the hell is this? And there's these kids having a COVID party in Alabama. The first person to get COVID
gets money.
And he's like, what is going on? why we're struggling to keep even one net new case from showing up. You know, my nephew, my cousin is a officer in the Indian Navy, and he's a medical officer, commander, and he is now month 3 in charge of his hospital in Pune. And it's, you know, the seriousness with which they take this is extraordinary.
Our culture is so messed up. It's just completely messed up.
In a country of 1.3 billion people, still every life is sacred to them. Still. Of every socioeconomic level. You know, they show up at his hospital, they're all treated absolutely equally. It's unbelievable.
I read the early reports of when they had a shutdown, when they shut down in India, and if you were caught out after curfew, you could be beaten.
Yes.
You could be given, you'd have to give 20 to 50 push-ups for the police because they're standing over you with the billy club.
Yeah. Especially for young men, they were extremely strict with young men. They beat them with a cane and then make them do push-ups so they never try that again.
So, I like that. I like push-ups.
I think every person sitting in a door where a mask is required should have a taser.
Oh my God, yes.
So when someone says, "Oh, I can't wear a mask," and you know the doctor didn't tell them to go out without a mask, just give them a little zap.
Yeah.
It's that thing. Oh, it's my right. It's my right. Well, there's repercussions to that. There's no accountability.
It's my taser.
It was so funny. They were holding a sign, "My body, my right. I don't have to wear a mask." And somebody said, and just like that, the Republican Party became pro-choice.
Pro-choice. Yeah. I get, you know, I want to go back to what Gregory asked about, because on Regeneron and peppermint oil and all this other stuff, because I want to sum up what my thoughts are when it comes to what is going to, I'm looking for the savior of my healthcare colleagues. I'm looking for not magic bullets, but what's going to keep them running until we get control or a vaccine. And that is keeping the mortality as low as possible and keeping the length of stay in the hospitals as short as possible. So you come in with COVID and we do whatever is necessary with anticoagulation and with immunomodulation, right? To keep you safe until the threat passes and we can send you home safely. If we do that with 90% of patients, or 95%, and continually improve our cycle of getting patients in and out of the hospital quickly and back home safely, we need a cocktail. But that cocktail is not going to be esoteric new drugs. It's going to be what we can do with what we have right now that maximizes the impact of our care plan on these patients. So like I said, dexamethasone, anticoagulants, and other things to bring down the viral titer and the damage to the patient in the short term. Let's just get that as a national standard and do that. Okay, we need that as soon as possible. Then all the science can come and catch up and get to a point where maybe we have a leronlimab or we have a new candidate antiviral that really cuts the viral load in half. On, you know, and then we get further relief for our healthcare workers. We can't have 30-day, 50-day lengths of stay, right? We have to get that down to 12. We have to get that down to 8, you know, and send home patients as soon as we can, swiftly. So that because we have no control, we're just going to have huge volumes. If we have huge volumes, we have to have a process by which we preserve our healthcare system's ability to cope. Okay, so that's the one thing, and then the other thing is that so that's one when it comes to the treatment, but that's at the other end of the spectrum. At the front end of the spectrum is testing. All right, so we have testing volume now, testing capacity now, but we have no testing strategy and we have no analytic strategy either. So I think I was telling my wife Karen that you can't call Texas a hotspot. That's idiotic. I mean, when I tell my friends in India or in the UK that Texas is a hotspot, they're like, "What are you talking about? A hotspot is a place, like a geographic, like defined location, like New York City. That's a hotspot. A state can't be a hotspot. What it
It's just
defines
500. It's 500 miles wide. That's all.
exactly. You can't be a hotspot, right? So we have to get out of the mindset that this is as good as we can do. That a 500-mile radius in the United States. I know we like everything big in this country, but a 500-mile radius does not define a hotspot. That's absurd. Okay, that's crazy. So testing is important. What we do with testing is even more important. And then eventually, the turnaround, like Terry said, 2 weeks is not an acceptable turnaround. At some point, 2 hours is not going to be an acceptable turnaround.
Right.
Okay. So this is goal setting that has not been done. This is goal setting that we've missed out on in the last 5 months. Okay. You have to set a goal nationally to say that the turnaround time for tests by the end of May has to be 2 days. By the end of June, it has to be 24 hours. By the end of July, it has to be 6 hours. You have to keep setting these goals. Okay, so by the time you get to school reopening, kids can be tested and be told the same day whether they're positive or not, so that the next day, or the teachers or staff or whoever is in contact with these populations, because if we still haven't learned, and a question came up that I wasn't able to answer, I think Madeline asked about what do we know about percentages in kids. One of the things that we're learning, and there's some very early work on this, is that they might actually be the longest duration asymptomatic carriers. They might be the ones that actually, because of their immaturity of the respiratory architecture, immaturity of the ACE2 molecule and TMPRS2 and all the protease and cleavage system, they just have the virus and they carry it and they spread it. They actually don't get full-blown disease, or very, very rarely do. Okay, we've gotten news of an 11-year-old who died of COVID, a 16-year-old, an 8-year-old. So these are extremely rare occurrences of death as a result of COVID symptomatology, fever, and et cetera. But this is what it comes down to. We are going to eventually need to know if kids can carry this and how long they carry it for, and if they spread it, because that's going to help to determine our strategies around what we do in schools. The CDC guidelines right now on the way they want schools to operate.
Be careful. Take care out there. That's their guideline.
You know, already overcrowded classrooms. I don't know how you're going to do it, but please make sure the kids sit 6 feet away from each other. I don't know how you're going to do it, but make sure that all your third graders are wearing masks. And I don't know how you're going to do it, but like these aren't guidelines. They're just absurdities.
Texas is telling schools that if they do not have in school, they will not get funding.
If they don't what?
If they're not in school learning, they will not get funding.
Outstanding.
So maybe there'll be someone there to take temperatures. That's safe.
Who said that this isn't going to change until leadership in the White House changes? Carol, there you go.
Yeah.
Ding, 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 ding.
Yeah.
That's
But the White
answer.
House says they're still on target for that end of year vaccine. I
Just
just read it
embers.
yesterday.
Lauren, you're overreacting. It's just embers.
I love being on here to overreact.
It's embers.
And when I wear a mask, I look like the Lone Ranger. So there's that.
Don't you love it? How the hell is he wearing that mask? What?
Nope.
Oh boy.
He's paying somebody to wear it.
He's paying somebody to wear it, my husband said.
Surrogate.
Like he paid them to take his SATs. Did you
Yeah.
hear that? Oh my God.
There was a report in the news today that West Nile virus is breaking out in the town I live in, and I was like, "Who gives a fuck?"
I want a cartoon. I want a cartoon of West Nile and COVID having a shootout at the OK Corral. Yeah, I wonder who'd win that one.
COVID.
I continue to think that Trump must be receiving the convalescent plasma. He must be.
Something.
And I'm
I
sure
saw
that
somebody-
in Brazil is too.
I saw an
he's
ancient
so upset.
an ancient thing where in Wuhan they gave a woman a do I want to say stem cell, not transplant, but stem cells. Do you think they're going to do that for our hush hush people that can't die of COVID? And did it really work?
I think they're using convalescent plasma with COVID antibodies with them already.
But
Did that not work 100%?
it doesn't.
I think it was the only one that showed it was prophylactic.
Yeah, but here's it can be considered prophylactic by definition. It should be, in fact. But the problem is that you need to select that plasma from a patient who has demonstrated neutralizing antibodies, right?
Right.
We still have these distinctions, like, okay, the patients that have developed antibodies, then there's that's tick box number one on a box, but then tick box number two is let's test those antibodies against various epitopes on various strains and see if they're truly neutralizing.
Right.
If they're not, then they had a very mild infection. The other thing that we're learning is that that it's dose dependent. So the severity of your course of disease is very much dependent on the extent of your infectious exposure. So if we were to create an experiment to prove this hypothesis, we would take Madeline, Carol, and Lauren, and we'd put them in the same room with 10 COVID positive patients who all have the same strain. Okay, Madeline would be there in there for 10 minutes. Carol would be in there for 30, and Lauren would be in there for an hour.
Thanks.
And then you basically follow them and see. You would see that Lauren would have the most extensive form of disease because the exposure was the longest and the duration.
Take it easy on my homie there, Sanjay.
No, I'm sorry. But basically, the more viral titer you're exposed to, the not only the higher the risk of transmission, but if transmitted successfully, the worse the course of disease.
It's too bad we couldn't have tested people going to rallies and churches and bars and stuff.
Yeah. And so then
the irony.
So then that's one thing we know now. The second thing, and we covered this last week and we covered a little bit of it this week, is that with this new mutation that in fact the highly transmissible form of the strain of the virus actually may not be the killer. Okay, so but that's bad.
Wait till those two meet.
Huh?
Wait till both the killer and the easy one decide to join forces.
If they team up, exactly.
Yeah, well, Sanjay said last week it's possible to have two strains in one body, so.
Yes, it is.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
Sorry, I missed that.
Yes,
that's the double whammy extra prize.
Oh.
Double whammy.
I've never won anything in my life. Maybe it'll be this.
Yeah, play the lottery. You'll get the COVID before you win the lottery, but play the lottery.
Okay, I will look at your questions. I love all of you guys. Stay safe and be well, and we'll see you next week. We'll do something more extensive next week. All right?
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks,
Take care,
everybody.
everybody.
Have a good night.
Good night.
Bye.
Good night, gang.
Bye-bye.
Bye.